right, it's time to call this meeting to order. And I want to welcome everyone to our first full committee of governmental affairs this year. I want to first introduce my staff. Jeff Lanier is our legislative counsel, and Craig Foster down here on the end is our legislative aide for the committee. If you will, please make sure you turn off your cell phones or at least the ringer on them. And what I'm going to do first, I have a couple of bills we're going to hear first, and then we'll bring out House Bill 704. The first bill we're going to hear is House Bill 436 with Representative Turner. Are you ready to present your bill? All right. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, members of the committee. I appreciate your time. I bring before you HB 436, which is LC number 286600. It simply allows for the General Assembly, through local legislation, to establish a durational residency requirement by district for county commissioners. It does not mandate it, it simply allows for it. Without this tweak, there would be a conflict between local law and the OCGA in certain counties, and the OCGA would take precedence, thus nullifying some local statutes. Since the OCGA states that the only residency requirement for county commissioners is that they live within the county for 12 months, a candidate can live in the county for a year but then move to a different district just before qualifying. That may be fine for some counties, but maybe wouldn't work for others. HB 436 would give us the flexibility that we need through the local legislation to determine that on each local delegation's determination. So with that, I'll ask if there are any questions.
Thank you, Representative Turner. Are there any questions from the committee? Representative Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Just one quick question. You have to be a resident of the municipality or the county. I understand that part. Are they required to be a U.S. citizen? It doesn't direct that right here. And is it somewhere else in the bill?
Well, this is simply adding to existing law.
Okay.
So if there's already that requirement, it would be someplace else. This doesn't delete anything from any other section of code.
Okay.
It simply adds these lines in lines 20 through 24.
It's not going to supersede any other law?
No.
Thank you.
Representative Williamson.
Yes, Representative Turner, just a quick question. What problem are we fixing here? I understand that you know what your bill's doing and how it would effectively work, but is this a problem we're having in Georgia right now? So
the reason why it came to my knowledge was because in Cherokee County, which is where I'm from, we had a redistricting process where we broke our county commission into districts, and we assigned one person per district to represent that district on the county commission. Under current law, you could have a candidate move into a district that they have not lived in and run for county commission, even though they've just established residency a day before qualifying. That has happened. We have seen that, and we're trying to prevent that not only in Cherokee County, but in any other county that would have a local ordinance or a local statute that would require a durational residency requirement.
So hence your lines 26, 27, you're saying this act should become effective upon its approval by the governor or upon its becoming law without such approval. So your hope would be to get this through this session and have it signed prior to qualifying?
Correct.
No further questions.
Anyone else with a question from the committee? Anyone interested from the audience in speaking on the bill? All right. What is the pleasure of the committee? Anything? All right. We have a motion and a second for due pass. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, like sign. All right. House Bill 436 moves forward to the Rules Committee. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Has Chairman Powell come in yet? No, Chairman Powell. Yes, excuse me, Chairman Allen Powell. Well, he actually has another bill in another committee at this time, so he will be here soon as he can get finished with the other bill.
Well, let's just go ahead and vote against it.
All right, then let's move forward. I want to explain to the committee where we are right now. And in front of you, you do have the rules of the committee. You will see number 3. The rule says any bill or resolution coming before the committee that proposes the incorporation of a new municipality or the division, creation, or merger of a county shall be considered only if the bill is introduced during the first year of a biennium. Any such bill or resolution may be passed by the committee only during the second year of the same biennium. No such bill or resolution may be reported out of the committee unless a study of the bill is made and a report submitted for the committee's consideration by the Carl Vinson Institute of Government or the Andrew Young School of Policy Studies. Now let me explain to you why we are hearing this bill today. And I think what we have here is a very unique situation with this bill. There was already a version of this a few terms ago that's been through the General Assembly. It was voted on by the people at that time. We also, it's only, this is the only portion left of Fulton County that is unincorporated. So what we have decided is to give the sponsor a hearing and allow him to explain to our committee why he feels like we may want to vote to waive the rule of the committee. So he is here to explain his bill and explain why he feels like we need to waive that rule and then move forward with the bill if we do choose to waive the rule. So I'm going to, it looks like I already have a question. Representative Oliver.
I think Chairman's making a very appropriate decision to allow the hearing to go forward, and I have no objection to that. I just want to make sure that when we say we're waiving the rule, that we are not setting any kind of precedent, and in no way in anybody's mind are we repealing the rule for any specificity of any issue that may come in the future.
That is an extremely valid point, and I made that very clear to the author that I had concerns about that. That's why it is his plan today to make us, to really convince us that this is what we want to do. The decision is on the committee.
And the decision that the chair may in the future put forward to the committee is, do we waive the rule for this bill only for this specific time that has no precedential value for any other matter?
That is correct. Thank you for pointing that out. Okay, Representative Bruce, are you ready to present your bill? You may. You may, certainly. It's here, right?
Representative Jones and Representative Flood.
Yeah, if you will, check this.
Testing.
I think it is on.
Okay. Is it on?
I believe that it is.
They are co-sponsors of this bill, as well as the majority of the Fulton County delegation, both Democrats and Republicans. This is a unique opportunity in that we keep talking about bipartisan work down here at the Capitol. This is definitely a bipartisan bill. And I want to say thank you to the members of the committee and to the chairperson for giving us an opportunity to come down and make our case. And I have also with me, and they'll come up in a second if it's appropriate, the two gentlemen from the Andrew Young Institute that actually did the study that we are going to be referencing as we talk. The reality is that, as I understand it, the 2-year rule is designed to make sure that all of the parties have an opportunity to vet what's going on, to study the feasibility of the city. Is it financially viable? And give everybody a chance to talk about it. And as to the chairman's point a moment ago, we have been dealing with this for more than 2 years. And yes, it did come before this body in 2007, 6 or 7, I forget exactly when it was, but 2006 or 7. And we've been talking about it from that point to now. So it's been more than 2 years. And right now, what we're asking is to give the people who live in this unincorporated area, this is the last portion of the county that is still unincorporated. And all the people are asking for is an opportunity to decide, to look at all of the options and to decide whether or not they want a city of their own versus being annexed into one of the surrounding existing cities that are there. And if we don't act on this today and act on this in an expeditious manner, these people may not get that opportunity because their surrounding cities will pick it off piece by piece by piece, and some people's immediate neighborhoods might end up in areas separating them from the person across the street from them. That's just because of the way it's designed. And we have that now, as a matter of fact, where you have people who live on the same street, and some of them are in Atlanta, some of them are in unincorporated Fulton County. You go into some people's backyards, and they might be in East Point or College Park, and it's what this community is just trying to do is to say, give us a chance to determine whether or not we want to have our own city or whether or not we're going to go into an existing city. And, you know, if the purpose of this is to make sure that it's been vetted, it has been vetted. If the purpose of the rule is to make sure that the study is done, the study has been done, and we're going to ask in a minute for the authors of that study from the Andrew Young Institute to come up and verify that this is a viable, healthy opportunity for the people in this area to be able to decide their own future. And those are the main reasons. As I said, we've already done the 2 years, the study. We've already vetted it. There's probably been, since the beginning of the year, probably close to 25, maybe even 30 community meetings already held in the various parts of the unincorporated area. So people are talking about it. People have already got it in their mind. We have to make a decision. And to the point where the citizens in the community, because you know you had to pay for that study, so the citizens, they've been going door to door asking people to participate in raising the funds to pay for this study. And, you know, so when you see that kind of, you know, excitement around the idea of being able to make your own choices and be able to decide for yourself what your community is going to be like, I really would hate to have to go back to them and tell them because of a rule, you know, and we've complied with everything that rule calls for us to do, that they can't have an opportunity to take their future into their own hands. Dawn, I'm going to let you say what you'd like to say too.
Thank you, Representative Bruce. Thank you, Madam Chair, for this opportunity. Very simply and quickly, so that you can hear from the others speaking, it's a question of form over function, and we know that in this body, many times, to make sure that the process works correctly, we have a form that allows us to waive those rules. I was not here when this bill came before the body, but as Representative Bruce said, this has been an issue that has long been vetted. What I do understand from that earlier process is that a part of that rule, that form, was put in place to ensure that those cities or unincorporated areas that are left in a county aren't caught by surprise either, in addition to making sure that the functionality and that the everything in the backdrop had been researched. Well, in this case, we are the only area in Fulton County, period, that has not been incorporated. So the effect on the rest of the county is minimal to none. The effect on the other bills that may come forward is very different. They do not have the same situation where they are the only area left to be incorporated. And so what may happen by waiving the rule for them may be completely different from us. And that's the main reason why we think that this would be a unique opportunity and an appropriate opportunity. We also know that before the body of the House, there have been other bills that come forward, for example, the independent schools districts, which allow cities created after a certain time to opt in. This area in Fulton County should have the same opportunity as all the other areas in Fulton County to take advantage of any other bills that may come forth before the House. The people have spoken. They came to us. They called us. They know that since 2006, there has been a massive change in the economy, growth of over 30,000 people in the area. It has prospered, and the people said we are ready to try again and let the folks vote. We ask that this body give those people an opportunity. Thank you.
The other piece of it, as I said, if we want to take this action now, because there's about, based on the last census, about 82,000 people in this area that would have an opportunity to be part of this city. And as I said, it's surrounded by other cities, and it's an area where we're concerned, that the other cities will start picking it off piece by piece. So if we had to wait beyond today, as I said, those cities, the area that we're talking about, the area that they paid for with this study, with the money that they've accumulated, it would be a different place in years to come. And it may not be feasible 3, 4, 5 years out from now if it continues to get picked off. If it's okay with the committee, I'd like to invite the two gentlemen from the Andrew Young Institute to come up and be able to tell you about the viability of the city based on the study that they've done. Is that okay? Okay. Come on up. Only one coming?
John's coming.
New needs. Okay.
Okay, are we ready? Hi, Peter Bluestone with the Andrew Young School of Policy Studies. Our study indicated that the new city of South Fulton would be financially feasible with the most conservative estimate of surplus at approximately $3 million. We looked at calendar year 2012 revenues and expenditures for the current Special Services District, and as you all know, this current Special Services District is the boundary of the proposed city. So we were able to estimate our surplus with a fair amount of precision. We looked also at the issue of the Fulton County Industrial District, and the value of that property is roughly $1.4 million, the assessed value. So that would not have a material effect on the surplus. If there is an issue, we understand, with current legal status and the current bill. So if that was not included in the new city, the city would still be financially feasible. Are there any questions? Again, this was somewhat more straightforward than other types of city and corporation studies in the fact that the borders were already determined. In other types of city studies, you have to determine where the land is and then estimate the different amounts of revenue and expenditures. But in this case, because it was wholly contained in the Special Services District and there was very good information from Fulton County on the expenses and the revenue that is generated by the district, we were able to estimate this, again, in a fairly straightforward manner.
All right, Representative Bruce. Okay, please.
Yeah, just one more thing, to make sure we drive home the point. This area has already been functioning as a city, okay? Because we had the Special Service Tax District set up, all of the money that is generated in that area stays in the area for the purpose of operating the city. So we've been functioning as a city. It's just not been a formal process at this particular point. And the county has been basically providing city services, but that area has been paying separately for the services that it gets, the police, the fire, and other things. All of that is, we've been operating as a city. We're basically just asking for the opportunity to vote to make us officially a city.
Can you explain to the committee about the Fulton Industrial Corridor and how that will work with the city on the ballot?
The Fulton Industrial Corridor is only about a mile long. Fulton Industrial obviously is a lot longer than a mile, but years ago, before all of our time down here, there was a law put in place that basically exempted that area from being annexed. And what this will do, and it's going to be basically the same thing that we did the last time, if the bill passes to allow for the city, there's a companion bill that Representative Flood, I wish you would see it.
He is here.
Okay, come on up, Representative Flood, and come on up. Okay, yeah, he'll be able to explain because that's his bill. But the essence of it is that if the voters agree to allow the city to come into existence, then that area will become part of the new city. If it does not, then they will remain as they are. I mean, that's it in essence. And even if they were not part of it, as was indicated a minute ago, it is not financially devastating by any stretch because it only represents about $1.5 million.
Okay.
Did that answer your question?
It does. All right, we have a couple of questions. Representative Brockway.
So thank you, Representative. Thank you, Madam Chair, for
Thank you.
allowing me to ask a question. Thank you for bringing this. Do you have a map with you, or can you kind of describe what part of Fulton County we're talking about for?
I do not have a map with me, but it's everything that's not already incorporated south of 20.
Okay.
Basically, that's the area.
All right. And just another kind of point of clarification. In 2007, this proposal was brought to the legislature.
Mm-hmm.
There was never a vote. There was never a vote taken by the residents of that area. So you never got to.
There was a vote taken, and it was a lot of confusion, back then, and that's probably because a lot of people just didn't understand what was going on.
Right.
And so now we've had time to educate more people and give them some understanding of it. And only about 20% of the population, the available population, voted.
Right.
Okay, but it was a large percentage that did not, that voted against it of those that did vote. Yeah. But 80% of the population didn't chime in at all. Yeah. And so the group that has been working on this has gone back and they're trying to educate that 80% so that they can make a viable decision as to what they'd like to have.
So you anticipate, it's been 6 years, 7 years now, and there's been a lot of talk of cities around the metro Atlanta area, so you would expect awareness to be a lot higher participation from the residents there. Oh, there's a map. Thank you.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you. That was all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Oliver.
This bill is brought as a general bill, but is within the Fulton County delegation, has there been any kind of vote or position?
Yes, it was actually brought as a local bill, and based on what I'm hearing from Legislative Council, it's still a local bill. It's just being treated as a general bill.
Did your delegation
and our
vote
delegation has, we got the majority of the delegation to agree to this.
Is there opposition to this bill from the city of Atlanta or any other city that has in any way become visible to opposing it?
It has not been brought to my attention from any of those cities. I don't know if it is or not, but it has not been brought to me.
Do you intend to provide police services as a city of South Fulton?
Yes, and we're already providing police services. We're already providing fire services. That's already being done through the Special Service Tax District.
Okay.
So really everything is functioning as a city right now. It just does not have the designation as a city.
Excuse me. Police and the fire services are not being provided via Fulton County.
That is correct.
Okay.
Well, let me clarify that. They're being provided by Fulton County, but it's being paid for by the people in that special service tax district.
Okay. All right, our next question comes from Chairman Hamilton.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I apologize for being late, so my questions may have been clarified before I got here. One was Representative Oliver touched on it, and so if I could just understand either through Ledge Council or yourself, Representative Brooke, being that this is local legislation and you're asking this committee to violate a rule that I have been part of for the last 8 years, having dealt with both Dunwoody and Brookhaven. Almost forgot the name. Tried to wash some of that out of my mind. Can you explain why we are hearing it as a general bill? Why can't you just take this bill over and file it so that you don't put the committee in a position to violate its rule?
Okay, I'm not asking you to violate your rule. I'm asking you to waive it. And I've been in the General Assembly for 12 years, and we do that under special circumstances. And the bill was originally being treated. It was in a different committee, being treated as a local bill. And I was told that we needed to go through this process instead of that. And so I agreed to do what I was instructed to do.
Can I ask you who you were told by?
Madam Chair, do you want to?
Well, it's Rule 50 from our rules for the House that states any bill or resolution relating to or affecting the political partisanship of any elected office, state revenues, general taxation, pari-mutuel wagering, alcoholic beverages, water resources, or hazardous waste shall not be deemed to be a local or special bill or resolution, but shall be treated as a general bill or resolution.
Okay, so how did we do Peachtree Corners and other local bills, the creation of those cities over the last several years then?
The chairman of Intragovernmental Coordination brought this rule to me to show me that it needed to be in our committee.
So are you saying that we violated our rules by allowing local bills to go through that process on those cities?
Perhaps we did. I don't know. Jeff?
It's my understanding that you can create this city through a local act. And I'm just trying to get clarification of that.
Well, we attempted to do that, and we were told to go this process. I mean, we were a day away from it being on the local calendar. And so we're just doing what we were instructed to do.
Well, again, this isn't against you. I'm trying to clarify.
Right, but I'm answering your question.
Because some of the additional questions I would say is that, and Representative Oliver there can certainly speak that this has been a somewhat of a discussion over the last several years, our rules, and in fact, Representative Oliver, and very friendly, tried to pass a bill last year, if I'm not mistaken, that had something to do this. So I'm just one of those that am trying to find out why we are actually doing this, because the way I look at this is you're asking this committee, right now we have, I believe, 7 different cities that are trying to come through here because their local delegation cannot agree. And so
Ours has.
Okay. Right. And so since it has passed, it should be local legislation. That's my whole point. And so now you're putting us in the posture, not you, but this rule by moving this committee, I see it as, and I've had discussions with Madam Chair on this, that we are being put in a position to change our rules. And so next time, and I'll pick on my friend Representative Oliver, the next time when I was chair here and wanted me to violate this rule, I said I can't. We've got a rule right here, and it doesn't make sense to do this. So I guess I'm looking for some assurance that those 7 different cityhood bills right now aren't going to ask for similar consideration to one of them didn't have their study done, another one didn't do this, and so they're going to say, well, this city in Fulton County was able to get around the rules, so why can't we get around those rules?
Okay.
I'm sorry, go ahead. I think it's great. If you want to do this incorporation, that's wonderful. I'm just trying to find out why it doesn't go back to the local calendar to be done that way. And I'm just asking Ledge Council or somebody to give me a reason for that. Again, I'm not trying to be difficult to this. I'm just trying to understand the rules, because I promise you've been here 12 years. I've been here 8. I promise you, if we suspend this rule, 6 or 7 of those cities out there right now, I promise you they will come and they will want us to suspend some part of our rules, and they will reference this right here as a reason to doing that. And I'm just trying to keep that from happening. I want to treat everybody fairly is basically what I'm saying.
I don't know that they would have the same set of circumstances. You know, first of all, as I said, this has been more than 2 years. And we also are in a situation where, you know, the reality is that we're looking for certain things to have been done. And you referenced the study. The study has been done. The community has gone out and raised the capital to conduct the study. So all of the things that the rule was put in place to do have been satisfied. And if I could have done this and kept going as a local bill, I would have, no question about it. And however, I am being cooperative and doing what
Well, I
was
think
told we
Jeff
need to
has some comments to make on behalf of Legislative Council.
Quite frankly, I didn't remember how we did Peachtree Corners. I didn't know they went through as the local rules. I thought they came through governmental affairs too. I just don't. No. I don't remember.
No, they were local.
But anyway, the decision was made by the legislature, by the House in this particular case, that we would treat these bills as general, and the Speaker has assigned them here. So while it's doesn't make it a general bill, we are going to treat them, as I understand it, by rule, as a general bill for this. And I think in the exchange before you got here, Chairman Hamilton, the exchange between Representative Oliver and the chairman here was that any rule waiver that we would take up today, Representative Bruce and his colleagues must make a proper case for it, and that it would have no precedential value, and that it would not be seen as inviting further cities to come before us and do that. I don't know if any of that helps you or not, but that's...
In other words, that's kind of like a findings in a bill. It really doesn't carry any...
There's a lot of truth to that, yes. A lot of truth to that.
Madam Chair, could I ask one more question?
You certainly may.
The original vote, you said that only 20% of the people voted. That doesn't mean a lot to me, because what I have seen is, depending on the area, 20% might be a very poor turnout. In other areas, 20% might be a very large turnout. You mentioned confusion. Well, I just left the bill on the floor that there was a great deal of confusion, because probably 20 people said they were going to vote one way and then chose to vote another way when the amendments came up. So I'm just trying to understand, what is the typical percentage voting in this respective area in general and primary elections?
Okay, I don't have an exact number in front of me, and I don't want to make up a number, but typically this area has a significant turnout. You have a large population of well-educated people, but even the best education, if you don't have the information, you can become confused. Right. And I kind of like what happened today. I'd like to believe that the members of the General Assembly are well-educated individuals, but we got a little confused today, and your bill ended up on the table.
Right.
So it's kind of the same thing.
Right. Okay.
All right, I want to just make a comment, or maybe even ask a question. In my delegation of Lowndes County, there are 4 of us who are representatives. And our rules state that we have to be unanimous with the decision that we make regarding local government issues. You have shared with me that the majority, I think was the word you used when you introduced this bill a few minutes ago, of the delegation are supportive of this bill. Are all of the delegation members supportive of this bill in Fulton County? Are all those delegation members supportive? And if so, could we get some form of written document to show that all are supportive of this bill?
Well, I don't know that we can get anything other than the fact that the signatures have been already submitted, because we had, our rules require, I used to be the chair of our delegation. Our rules require that the majority of the delegation sign off on anything, and that is what has happened here. As I said, both Democrats and Republicans have signed off. We had more than the required number of signatures, and to be honest with you, once I had the required number, I just stopped asking, because I thought that it was going to be handled as a local bill, and it wasn't until after we had already gone through the whole process. We had it published. It's been out on the internet for, I don't know how long, for several months. I pre-filed the bill so that the bill would be available for everybody that had an interest in it to be able to see it before the session even started. We had a couple of people that came forward and said that they'd like to see a few changes to it. We made those amendments as requested. And so anybody that's had an opportunity, everybody's had an opportunity to decide whether they wanted this or not. So it's been out there.
We have a few more questions. Representative Oliver.
Procedurally, I wanted to respond. And this, Ms. Lanier referenced this. We had this discussion before we came in. Procedurally, right now, the chairman has, in my view, appropriately given Representative Bruce an opportunity to present his bill and to begin to make an argument to us why we should waive the rule. Procedurally, we don't have a motion to waive the rule in front of us. We have not decided what are the criteria by which we would waive the rule. And I was commenting earlier that when we get to that point procedurally and have to make a decision, not whether or not to pass the bill, but whether or not to waive the rule, I was going to have a laundry list of conditions in writing, because I'm a document about why we may choose to waive the rule in this case. But you're absolutely right. When we set aside the rule for good or bad purposes, everybody else is going to have a case, and we need to be mindful of that. But procedurally right now, Chairman has decided to extend a courtesy to Representative Bruce to allow him an opportunity to begin to make a case, even though a motion is not pending. Am I correct, Madam Chair, where we are?
And may I respond to that?
You certainly may.
And thank you for that explanation. And that's one of the things I'd love to see, because I know for a fact that some of those cities out there, they're trying to, or those groups that are trying to become cities, several of them have not followed the rules specifically. And so there will be, in that group of 7, there will be those that will automatically try to discount them strictly because they didn't have to follow the rules. And then there will be others that will say, well, let's just waive the rule. That's a silly rule. It doesn't really apply in this particular case. And so I just want to be very careful as we go down that. And I certainly trust your judgment on that. And I know you've been very involved in the DeKalb County cityhood that we've been involved in together. And so I just really want to make sure that we be very careful. This has nothing to do with your desire for cityhood. I support that, and I'm not wanting to stand in the way of it. I'm trying to figure out if there's not a different way to do it. And it sounds like you've exhausted that, and I'd just like to get clarification, if I may, on why this decision was made. And it may be perfectly valid. I'm just trying to brace. So please do not misunderstand my concern on this. I hope you don't. So,
Thank you, Chair. And if I may respond to that, before you came in, Chairman Hamilton, I'm happy to repeat it for you because I appreciate your interest in this issue. The one special thing that makes this particular city unique from any other city that may come before this body is that this is the only one that is the last unincorporated area of an entire county. And so part of that 2-year provisions, from my understanding, were put in place to also protect those remaining unincorporated areas from these quick incorporations. In this case, there will be no effect on the surrounding cities with this incorporation, unlike any of the other cities that may become before the body. And with the preparation that was put in advance, the feasibility study being in place, and the fact that that there's no negative effects on anyone else, unlike the other cities, this would be a perfect opportunity to waive that.
Well, I was here when that rule was set up, and my recollection of why we did that was, and I know we're getting into the wrong stuff here, was more that we didn't want a rash of cities making it very easy, and we wanted a specific process that they had to go through so that we didn't receive a lot of bills at the last minute with no justification, no process, and that type of thing, just as we do with retirement. We have the same rule that you can't introduce retirement changes, certain financial changes in the second year. You have to do it in the first year to make sure. So, thank you.
Thank you.
And I've shared with you. I just want to be very careful when we set a new precedence, and it sounds like that Representative Oliver is ensuring or wants to ensure that if there is a precedent set, that there's going to be some caveats that we all agree on.
That's why we're talking it out, and I appreciate all of the conversation we're having today.
Because I voted for Dunwoody 7 times, and I sat through, I don't want to tell you how many. I don't want to tell you how many hours we spent on Lakeside. So it really is a long, drawn-out process. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All right, Representative Brockway. Is that you? 26?
I guess it's me,
Representative Williamson.
And thank you for whomever brought this map to us. When another member approached me, just as knowing that I'm on this committee, I told them, I love the idea of the opportunity for cities to form their own government, and I'm very sympathetic to this whole concept right now. But at that time, it wasn't. I was not reminded of the fact that we have a rule in place. So that's one caveat I've got now that I didn't have then. And just a question on the map. It appears to be there's pockets or island or uncontiguous pieces of this proposed city. Is that correct?
So what
spoken by our independent caucus member.
I'm sorry. By the legal standards of contiguous, all of these areas connect. But part of the reason why we're incorporating is this is what was left.
Right. I understand that. Again, I'm very sympathetic. I'd love to see just as local legislation if that can be worked out. And again, I'm just a member of the committee. I don't decide that. But how in the world do you police and service and logistically, I don't see how you do it.
We're doing it now.
Yes, sir.
So there's one police department, one fire department that handles this whole entire area that you see covered on the map. And so they have been handling it. And what the citizens in that area are concerned about is that they're going to continue to be pockets that they won't be able to police. And if it's spread out even more, that they won't be able to incorporate as a city at any time if any more time is allowed to let anyone else to come in and eat away. You see the long strip that's directly kind of towards the bottom. That's South Fulton Parkway. And in order to ensure that that does not break up the entire city, we have to continue to move forward with this bill. And that's why we are here as sponsors of the bill asking the members of this committee to treat it the same way that it should have been treated, as Chairman Hamilton brought out. If it would have gone through local legislation, we would have been far past this point, and we're asking that it continue to go on that route that it should have gone with all the other cities.
Well, I wish it had them.
Representative Kidd.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. It seems to me like the sponsors of the bill got caught up in confusion of which route to go, and they've done everything they have been told to do one way or the other. And in light of that, and to get us off square one, I'd like to make a motion that in this one case pending before us at this time, that we waive the existing rule for this House bill 739, because obviously I'd like to do it this year in order to have it voted on without having to raise money for a special election.
All right, let's just hold the motion. I appreciate you making it, but let's hold it until we get some more discussion going here. And we do have another Question or comment from Representative Oliver?
I'll waive. I was going to respond to the motion, but if you decide not to accept the motion or to not move forward the motion, or if you decide to move forward, I'll.
Sorry. Are there any other comments from the committee? All right, we're going to ask our witnesses to be prepared to come forward and speak on the bill. Yeah, if you will, please keep it brief. Brevity gets you everywhere, right? Anyway, our first speaker is going to be Representative Virgil Flood, the state rep from District 64.
Here?
Yes, please.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the committee. I will be very brief and probably reiterate what you've already heard, and that is that what you are considering today is really a continuation of a discussion that culminated in an election in 2007. That discussion about the creation of the city of South Fulton never ceased, and so we are asking at this point that that process be moved to a referendum in the May election. Since that time, frankly, some things have changed, and one of those is that the population has grown almost by 100% since 2007. Well, the 2010 census, between the 2000 census, which was used as the basis for the 2007 referendum, and now we're using the 2010 census, the population has gone from about 55,000 to close to 100,000 people. That is significant in that it creates an opportunity for an even larger revenue stream, as well as a bigger surplus. As you heard from Dr. Bluestone, the opportunity for a surplus could be as high as $17 million plus, and that's including the capital expenditures as well as the maintenance and operation of the city. The fiscal study that was done is essentially a revision and an update of the fiscal study that was done a number of years ago, which speaks to this is not necessarily new news. This is not a new idea. This is not a new concept. And as Representative Jones pointed out, this is the last remaining portion that is unincorporated in Fulton County. Representative Bruce pointed to the fact that all of the services that would be provided in the city are already being provided through a special service district tax now. So the fire, police, parks and recreation, zoning and planning, all of those activities are being conducted today by Fulton County, and those are being funded by a special service district that would be replaced with the city tax, and would still allow this newly created city the opportunity to have additional revenue through local option sales tax and franchise fees and others. So real succinctly, we think that there's an opportunity to create a sustainable city. It's the last remaining portion of Fulton County that is unincorporated today. And Representative Chairman Williamson pointed out that there appears to be some areas that, if you looked at the map, multiple jurisdictions are crossed. This doesn't get any better with time. And we urge you to support a referendum that would allow the voters in the remaining portion of unincorporated Fulton County to vote in May to determine for themselves whether or not they would like to be incorporated. That's all I have.
Thank you, Representative Flood. Any questions for our witness? No questions. Thank you. Benny Crane. And I'm sorry I missed you earlier.
That's okay. I understand busy
We
people
had some
in high
exciting
demand.
stuff going on in the House chamber.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair, for this opportunity, and thank you to all the committee members here who are vetting this proposition. I rise to speak in support of House Bill 704 as the chairman of the steering committee that's leading the charge to have this referendum, this piece of bill, placed on the ballot on May 20th of 2014. It's been a tremendous journey to get back out into the streets since 2007, where we fell a little bit short on getting the requisite number of votes to create a city. Had that not occurred, we wouldn't be here today. But the people did not lose their resolve to have the sense of independence and self-reliance. And we've come together again to ask you to honor Representative Kidd's motion to waive the committee rule. Here's a couple of reasons why. It's been stated by Representatives Flood and Jones and Bruce that this is a unique situation, and you alluded to it as well, Madam Chair, that it's unique in that it does represent the last unincorporated part of Fulton County. No other county in the state, the great state of Georgia, can come to you and say that we represent the last part. We do. This started back in 2005, and here we are. So it's unique for this committee. Also, it's an opportunity that Fulton County government can be out of the municipal services business. No other community in Fulton County does Fulton County provide fire and police services for. No Parks and Recreation, code enforcement, zoning, none of those things. All of those things are done by a local government, the respective cities. And we'd like to have that opportunity too. We enjoy, if you will, the pleasure of having governance provided to us by the Fulton County government. Of the 7 commissioners, only 2 live within the footprint of this new city. So what you effectively have, people who live outside of this community are making local decisions. They may live in a city in another part of the county, and they make no decisions in those respective cities in which they live, but yet they make decisions about what happens in our community. So we believe that we can have a mayor and city council who can make those local decisions. So we urge your support of to amend the rule, to waive the rule, because this does represent the last opportunity that we may have. Perhaps even it might be a good idea that this might be a standing waiver that any county should have, where a community comes and they represent the last part, or they have been here before, which happens to be our reality. We've been here before, and we represent the last unincorporated part. So I urge your support. It's a great piece of legislation. It's been vetted by the community. We have gone to over 40 different communities, and overwhelmingly, the people are saying, yes, we can. There are some who are saying that it's not a good idea. And let me conclude by saying this. Your body, the legislature, requires that a newly proposed city would do a feasibility study to demonstrate the financial viability. But I submit to you that if unincorporated South Fulton was held to that same standard that they had to prove financial viability in order to remain unincorporated, they will be challenged. Because while we are yet raising the millage rate 4 out of 5 of the past 5 years, we raised the millage rate while effectively giving away millions of dollars, which would be ours, in local option sales tax dollars. So we urge your support. We urge the support of the waiver. We urge the support of the passage of House Bill 704, and we urge your support of the referendum passing on May 20th, 2012. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the witness? No questions. Thank you very much, Mr. Crane. Is JC Sebastian?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and committee members. I don't know if there's much that I can add to what has been said before, but one thing I can say that as a resident of South Fulton, and I'm also a researcher, I've studied at the Census Bureau in Washington, D.C. before, and what I find about the information that has been spread just as a resident, and also the feasibility study, is that it proves without a shadow of a doubt that the city is feasible, right? I've also spent time on the ground going about the community, talking to individual homeowners and explaining to them about the feasibility study and explaining to them about what South Fulton risk in terms of not moving forward right now with the effort to become a city, right? In terms of further other cities around, maybe taking other parts and eventually making the area to be one which will not then be feasible to make a city from. So I'm just urging you guys to support HB 704, right? Because I just represent a normal homeowner who just moved into South Fulton within the last 7 years. So I wasn't here in 2006, right? And I can tell you, like a lot of people, the area has really exploded in terms of population growth within those last 8 years. And as I said before, being a boot on the ground and talking to a lot of folks in the neighborhood within the last 2 months, there is overwhelming support for us becoming a city at this point in time. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Yeah, that's what we're going to hear. Thank you, Mr. Sebastian. Any questions for the witness? Okay. Next is Eric Richardson.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to testify before your committee. I'm a 30-year resident of South Fulton, unincorporated. I voted against this before. I'm going to vote against it again. Things have changed in South Fulton. Yes, we have a larger population. My problem with this with the committee that was organizing is that all of South Fulton was not informed. I asked them for information. It wasn't forthcoming. I've been to their meetings. If we only had 20% come out and vote the last time, we'll be lucky to get 15. But I'm going to try and change that. We are building opposition, and we are going to meet. We're going to have our committees. A change doesn't need to be made in Fulton County, and we probably do need to form our own city. It's just a process that has been run on us at this particular time is why I oppose. Yes, we need to do something. It could be a viable option, but I don't want to see another city created that goes into bankruptcy, you know, and then back on the dole of the state or whatever the process is at that particular time. I just don't think enough information has really, nobody knocked on my door. Nobody asked me to donate to a study. And I see these gentlemen quite on a regular basis. And nobody asked me about any of it. Not that I'm just one voter, just one resident. Let us decide. I'll go with them. Put it out there for the people. And we'll decide what we want to do. But that'll be our decision. So I will ask you to waive the rule on their behalf. And then we'll do what we got to do in South Fulton. Thank you.
Thank you. And you do have a question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, excuse me, he waived. Anyone have a question for the witness? Okay. We have 3 others who want to speak for the bill. Are you still interested in speaking?
I am, because I was one of the ones that spearheaded the opposition the last time.
Okay. Are you Deborah?
No, I'm
Rosie. All right. Well, then we'll keep going. Then Deborah Bazemore.
Good afternoon. Thank you to all the committee members for allowing me to speak. I do want to reiterate a lot of what was said here today. I am a resident of South Fulton, the unincorporated South Fulton, and I am in favor of the city. As we do publicize our meetings, and I have been one of the individuals that have called several meetings in our area, unfortunately, sometimes people's emails changes and different things like that, so we have not been able to get to certain people. But the ones that we have been able to reach and that come out, they may walk in on the fence, but when they sit and they hear the facts, all the facts, their minds are made up and changed. And they come to us at the end of the meetings asking, how can I help? And trying to donate also. So we do have an overwhelming support in the area for our city, and it is necessary, and it needs to be done now. I don't want to be annexed. If it comes down to me being annexed, I'm considering moving. I have a problem with that. I want to be in control of my own destiny. And I don't understand why, if we have all the surrounding cities now, they had that opportunity but we won't. So I'm urging you to please waive your rule and allow us to make the decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bazemore. Any questions? Okay. Brad Carver.
Madam Chair, members of the Governmental Affairs Committee, my name is Brad Carver from Halbu Smith, and I'm here on behalf of the Buckhead Coalition. It is today that I here to come to speak to you in support of this bill. I actually served on the Fulton County Study Committee back in 2007, and at that time we were able to come up with a lot of good reform efforts for the county. A lot of those have been looked at and have been considered and adopted since then. And what I'm here to tell everybody, just like Representative Bruce said when he came before you, we had a lot of bipartisan support. In fact, at that time, 13 of our 16 policy recommendations on that study committee were adopted unanimously by our committee. And one of the things that we discussed at that time was the incorporation of South Fulton. Because if that had been accomplished at the time, then we would have had 100% of the county incorporated, as you've heard today. From the standpoint of the rest of the county, you've heard the residents here and what it's going to mean for them. It's going to be a huge deal. In fact, because they're already operating under a special service district, financially speaking, for the residents of that area, this is going to be it's a no-brainer. It's going to be a way that they're going to be able to control their own destiny, but also be more financially viable than just be relying on the special service district. So you've already heard that side. What I'm here to tell you is what it's going to do for the rest of the county, the 950,000 people of Fulton County, which of course includes Buckhead, Atlanta, but includes every square inch of the rest of the county. What it's going to mean is that we're going to have efficiency in government. And for the first time in our state's history, we will have basically a consolidated government where you can't have a consolidated government. We'd have 16 municipalities and 1 county. And here's the key. The county would do the county functions, and the city will do the municipal services. And so in this case, we won't have the overlapping bureaucracies between the city and the county. So what does that mean for the Buckhead business community? What does that mean for every homeowner, every residential, every commercial property taxpayer in the entire Fulton County, which of course is approximately 1 million people? What it means is that we would be able to eliminate whole areas of departments, which could eventually mean a lowering of the ad valorem property taxes for every taxpayer in Fulton County. And that not only is good for Fulton County, but is really good for the entire metro area and the state of Georgia. So I'm here to urge you to waive your rule and to adopt the city. It's certainly going to be good for the future of our state. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Carver. Any questions? Chairman Hamilton.
Mr. Carver, how's Michelle and the baby? Not a baby anymore, huh?
Well, we actually have one on the way, too.
That's right.
She's doing very well. Thank you.
Question. You made a statement that contradicts the statement that we've heard many times in the DeKalb County. You're saying that the actual creation of a city has a financial incentive or a financial impact on the county government? I've been led to believe throughout all the DeKalb County discussions that in those particular cases that hurts the county.
What I'm saying in this particular case, because of the unique situation that we're here with the fact that the rest of the county is incorporated, this is why with DeKalb it's a different situation, because they're, I think, approximately 55-60% incorporated. I don't have the latest numbers. But when we talk about here, when we looked at this in 2007, obviously we had several cities, the city of Chattahoochee Hill Country, the city of Milton, and the city of Johns Creek that were also going on the ballot. All of those passed. The South Fulton area was the only area that didn't pass. And so as a result of that, that's when the Special Service District was created to take care of the local services. So in this case, the answer is yes. I mean, if we were to remove...
So let me
yes.
ask a further question. And so what you're saying is if we have any cities and counties, we need to go ahead and incorporate the entire county? That's the best financial model?
What I'm saying is in the case of a highly densely populated county like Fulton County and yes, I would say in the case of DeKalb County, Eventually, I think that's what's going to happen in DeKalb County as well. Because
so using that, then you would say in DeKalb, what we need to tell them is to go ahead and stake out and just determine pick out names and so on and so forth, and incorporate the entire. We used to have a joke around here. It's called the City of DeKalb. So is that basically what you would recommend?
Well, this is what I would say to them. Again, I'm here to talk about the city of South Fulton and what it's going to mean.
Yeah, but this is the legislature.
Yes, sir. But I would say this, and see, other states have different situations. In other states, you have counties that do county services, cities that do city services. In the state of Georgia, we have a service delivery strategy. Right. In the case of counties like DeKalb and Fulton, at a certain point where you have a certain population density, it does make the municipalization effort does make sense. That's a very different situation than a lot of our more rural counties. And so what I'm getting at some point in the future, perhaps that situation, I know I've talked about this exact issue with Representative Oliver. At some point in the future, it may make sense for 100% of DeKalb County to be municipalized. That's not where we are today, but I do think that we're heading in that direction. And we are about to achieve that, hopefully, in Fulton County. And I think for the good of all of our property tax owners, it will be a very good thing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Hamilton. Representative Oliver.
Mr. Chairman, if we would like to turn this into a hearing on DeKalb, I'm ready. I'm ready. Got my stuff together, but I'm assuming that you gentlemen would prefer.
Let's stick to Fulton.
Point well taken. I apologize.
Apologize to you.
I apologize.
Any other questions for this witness? Thank you, Mr. Carver.
Thank you.
Our last witness before our chairman comes back is Ms. Rosie Jackson.
Hi. I just want to piggyback on what everyone else has said because I actually was one of the ones that were spearheading against the city in 2007. And now I am on board for the city of South Fulton because I feel that we can choose our own destiny. We'll have our own police that, we had some people talking with the county the other day speaking that they don't have enough police protection. But based on that feasibility study, we will be able to hire more police for our area that can concentrate on South Fulton versus the county buildings and facilities. That's all I wanted to say. I am for it.
Thank you. All right. You do have a question.
Question.
Chairman Hamilton.
I'm just curious. Can you tell me what was the main reason that you had a change of heart? Was it the feasibility study? Was it the fact that more cities incorporated during that time and that affected the delivery? Or can you just give me an idea of what that was?
I saw some things that was happening in the county that I was not particularly fond of. And I felt that we could do more if we controlled our own area. We could have more in our own area.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
I'm curious to know if anyone is here on behalf of Fulton County. No one. It's a real bummer.
I'm here, but I'm not a representative of them. I'm not a lobbyist on their behalf, but I'm here from Fulton County. If you'd like me.
Well, if you'd like to say anything, we'd love to hear from you.
The board hasn't taken any position on this issue. Yeah.
Okay. Representative Oliver.
Madam Chairman, I'm not making a motion today, but I'm just thinking aloud here. Procedurally, we've got some options on how to proceed, and you can tell us how we can proceed, and I'll be happy with that, whatever decision you make. But procedurally, if we were going to consider a motion at a future time to waive this rule, I think that we ought to have that clarified with specificity. And I don't know that I have a readiness position right now to draft that for you or to articulate it. Did you have a preference as to how you wanted to proceed today?
I would value and appreciate you taking the time to get the motion ready the way that we would want it to be addressed to the committee. And I'd be willing to certainly hold this bill and wait until we can get that done at the appropriate time. Chairman Hamilton.
I would appreciate that too, and I have some personal reasons. We have a group in our community that has announced a cityhood initiative, and so I want to find out what the rules are before that stops. And I believe Representative Kidd also mentioned that he potentially has one. So I think it behooves us all to have a very consistent process, and so that's the unfortunate thing for the people that want this city, is that it has a this change in rule has a far-reaching impact on the other 159 counties around the state. And so I just want to make sure we try to be as consistent as we possibly can.
Is articulating a basis that we have had a bill before, we have voted on it at least once, we have lost it, and we have completed our study. That may be the parameters of what a motion looks like, but I think for those of you that have other cityhood movements, we might want to look at it. I mean, that may be sufficient. That may be sufficiently narrow. And that factually is, you're saying that Fulton County Police doesn't go anywhere else in Fulton County? They're doing something outside right now.
And every city has its own police force. And the only area that the Fulton County Police cover is us. That's it.
And none of the other cities in Fulton have their own fire department. I mean, don't have their own fire department, or they contract. I'm kind of worried about Grady here, but that's. I would like an opportunity to consult, or give the chairman just tell us how she wants this waiver to be defined. We find out.
All right. Certainly.
I could, because I'm trying to make sure, and I guess I'm asking this of our council, this is a local bill. As you told me, you can call it an elephant. It's still a local bill.
That's correct.
But it's not being treated as a local bill. So I guess when this committee takes the action, hopefully it will be favorable to what we're requesting. From that point forward, I'm not sure exactly how it would be treated. Would we put it on, if it's favorable coming from this committee, would it then go on the local calendar, or would it be on the floor for a vote, which means we have to go through the rules committee?
Correct.
That's correct.
Okay, so if we have to do all of that, time is of the essence, and that was the reason why I was asking the question, is because, you know, as you know, the days are going, and they're going relatively
Fast.
quick.
Yes.
And I really wouldn't want to get caught up in the process around the rules committee.
Mm-hmm.
So if we can move expeditiously, I really, really would appreciate it.
I believe that we can.
Okay.
Okay. Representative Brockway?
Yes, ma'am. Just one more thing that is unique about this situation is that in some of the other cityhood proposals that this committee deals with is we have a delegation that has followed its delegation rules and is in favor of it. And perhaps that ought to be one stipulation that we make. And if this committee decides to waive the rule, that ought to be a stipulation. Another thing in favor of Representative Bruce is that he has gone and done the work and got his delegation behind him to support that.
Supportive of you also, if we also said that you don't have any boundary conflicts like other cities.
Yep.
If I could be so bold, I'm not opposed to, in the essence of time, given that this is day 20 and we might be missing a few days for snow, it wouldn't bother me if we took a few moments to try to draft that right now. And
please do.
What do you think? Or if you wanted, or an alternative, this is really up to the chair.
Yes.
Is we meet tomorrow after the subcommittee and have a general meeting.
I would probably prefer that. I would hate for us to miss.
Are we going to be meeting tomorrow?
Well, we have a subcommittee meeting in the morning, and then we have another meeting, full committee, on Wednesday.
If the weather doesn't change.
But if the weather changes, then we're not going to count it a day anyway. Okay. So we will have another day to add to our calendar. I would prefer we actually sleep on this anyway, in that we have the time to really lay this out before we waive a rule of this magnitude, in my opinion.
Could you call it as you just mentioned, a full committee meeting to meet immediately after the subcommittee meeting? Or
we have one scheduled for Wednesday.
What about tomorrow?
Tomorrow?
Tomorrow morning we have one at 8:30, and it's a subcommittee meeting, and I believe it has 5 or 6 bills on it. And then rules will be at 9:30. 9? Okay.
What about on adjournment or lunch break tomorrow?
Possibly, yeah. That would.
It's your call.
Okay.
Can meet in my office.
There is room 502, which is right next to my office, which is never occupied. It's a nice big room. A nice conference table. We could meet in there.
Full committee meetings are required to meet on.
Oh, okay.
She could do it at 8 o'clock. You could do it at 8 o'clock.
I haven't heard that room.
Like Chairman Smith does insurance.
Well, we have appropriations in the morning at 7:30. That's why we moved ours to 8:30. It was originally at 8. I'm thinking, can it wait till Wednesday even? Can we?
Wednesday, I don't think we'll be here. That's my guess. What about 341? That's usually open on adjournment. But I don't know.
Let us work on a date in the next 2 days, and we will meet in full committee and further discuss this and get it where we need it to be before we just move forward. I would feel better about it if it were a thoughtful process instead of a rushed situation like I feel that we're in right now.
Okay. Thank you to the committee. Madam Chairman, thank you very much.
And one more comment by Chairman Hamilton.
In order for me to support whatever this is, I need an understanding if in the future all cityhood bills are going to come as a general, or we're going to arbitrarily decide which way they go. Because to me, that's the real question. Because under my understanding, in the past, this would have been a true local bill. And so it looks like maybe somebody has decided that that policy is going to change. And I'd just like to confirm that so that I know, are we making a rules change for those that happen to come to this committee, or is the intention all citihoods to come to this committee? Because I think that potentially the rules might be different depending on the outcome of that.
I think that's an excellent point. And we do need to discuss that with the appropriate people,
right,
so that we're all on the same page regarding where bills are assigned. Good point. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you to all of you who came for this bill. And we actually have one more bill. Chairman Alan Powell ran over to appropriations meeting, but he said he would be right back. If we could just simply be at ease for a few minutes, I believe he should be back any moment, and we can hear his bill. Back to order, where we have our last bill of the day. So this is the substitute to House Bill 739, which was favorably approved by the Subcommittee of General Government under the direction of Chairman Jay Powell. And to present this bill will be Chairman Alan Powell.
Thank you, Madam Chairman and committee members, and thank you for the latitude of reconvening this meeting where we could move this forward. I bring to you a substitute to House Bill 739. I presented this to the subcommittee last week, and this comes out of the one of the state agencies had had a vote in November that basically said that if board members to that respective department did not come in person to the meeting but was there via video or Skype or telephone conferencing or whatever, that they would receive the same per diem. And the question that brought to bear to me is, in this new and ever-changing day of technology, is that the proper thing to do? Per diem, in my mind, generally means to cover one's expenses, not a salary. Normally we serve, people are appointed to boards, commissions, committees and the such as a public service, and it's not there to basically make money, but to be reimbursed mileage and such. That department in question, in talking to the guy who had made the member of that department that made the motion, said that he did it because it was a money saver, that they didn't have to run up mileage. Well, that's true, but still, if you're paying a per diem, that calls a question in my mind. I serve on several boards myself, and I know that as a board member, you don't get quite the bang for the buck if you're not there to interact with your fellow committee members and such, and wherefore. Now, I will tell you that last week, the day that we brought this bill, or the day after we brought this bill up, that same state agency had a board meeting, and they rescinded their action from November. Now, I still don't think it's a mute issue at that point, because I think this is something that's going to continue to go. And what you see in front of you this is the handiwork of Madam Chairman of this distinguished committee, and some discussion that we had after that meeting. What this does, this says that if you're on a committee, board, committee, or commission that falls under this code section, that if the board itself wishes to allow that type of participation, either video conferencing or teleconferencing or whatever, then yeah, they can do that. They got to do it as action of that respective board, and then that board member can be paid, but not paid a per diem.
And what we're looking at 28706.5S is that you can pay them up to $35 a day.
Pay them up to $35, just like a juror.
Okay, I would not support this, and I would have supported it. I did support it in subcommittee, but I won't support paying somebody compensation for a video conference.
All right.
Okay. Chairman Hamilton.
She has asked my question. That's what I wanted to do, was because I supported and voted for, and I may have even made the motion to move, but I need to think about I was wanting to know what the difference was, what the committee sub is.
Basically, it says that if that commission, board, or
what did we have originally?
It said that you had to be in attendance.
You had to be there, and then they had the prerogative whether to pay them or not. Exactly. And so this is written, says that if you choose not to go there, then the board has the ability to pay them up to $35.
$35, and that was based on generally what a member of a jury would make. Now,
so it could be a 30-minute meeting, but a juror's all day.
Right.
Okay.
And I'll tell you about
Sure.
This is going to tell every board, commission, or whatever across, and every board member that they got an opportunity, that they got to spend taxpayer time and taxpayer energy talking about a $35 meeting fee, and all the paperwork that's going to go along with that, all the sworn affidavits, i.e. false swearing, all of that. We're going to be arguing about whether people are sitting in front of the computer or not sitting in front of the computer, and I think that public service on this level should be public service, and not a mechanism or a process or a procedure for payment.
Okay. Well, I can certainly appreciate the opinion that y'all have, so I will ask.
I was just asking. I wouldn't.
Well, I mean,
opinion.
But at this point, then, would y'all consider? Because I'd like to see unanimity.
We actually have another member who has a question or a comment.
Answer my question.
I would really, quite frankly, if it's the will of this committee, I'll live with anything you want to. Now, you know what my original proposition was. If you want to go back to the original proposition, I think we do need to deal with the issue of teleconferencing and such.
We have voted on that previously. We have had bills that have allowed people to meet with legal authority. I'm pretty sure we've done that uniformly, haven't we, Jeff? For state agencies.
That's the question.
So the authority is not in question. It's only in question whether they get a per diem or compensation. Right. Do they get reimbursement or compensation? And my vote, speaking only for myself, is nothing.
If I might ask, Madam Chairman, if I may ask the council a question. In the code, do we allow for video conferencing and the such as a member so that they could actually attend the meeting via these other methods?
There's a code section in Title 50. I don't remember the exact number of it, but it's, in fact, well, it may be, I believe it's the one that's referenced in Section 2 of the substitute here, 50-1-5, is the code section that authorizes meetings by teleconference or state
So they can
agency.
already do that?
Yes, sir. The
Well,
meeting by teleconference is not the issue. The question is whether or not, under your bill, members would be compensated with daily expense allowances if they don't attend the meeting in person but do attend by some electronic means.
Then whatever the will of this committee, if they want to go back to my original bill, then I have no problems with that, whatever the will of this committee is.
Representative Williamson.
I'd just like to thank the author for bringing it to bringing this proposed legislation, because I'm right there with you on the intent. I get a little bit lost on the nomenclature because I don't remember my Latin, but per diem means by the day. Yeah. And the distinction I'm trying to draw is by the day. I pay a day laborer by the day for salary, and we've sort of morphed over into the idea of per diem. The legislative body is expenses, and sometimes it's salary, and sometimes we're considering expenses. So, for example, if you do have I hate to wade into it, but say a Board of Regents meeting that lasts hours and hours and hours, and it's very important that somebody have their input, and it's done video conferencing, they might carve up a whole day sharing their presence or giving up a whole day for the good of the state of Georgia. So I don't know, is that a per diem or is that an expense reimbursement there? I'm happy to go back and yet I have the same reservations on the $35. It's so minuscule. I'd love to see us just pass out your original bill. That's just
I agree.
My observation. So that wasn't a question. That was more of a comment.
Let me, just so the committee is fully aware, I don't like to interject myself into these things except when there's a question about law. And I take it that there's some maybe confusion present on how we pay these people. What the code section 45-7-21 that's referenced in section 1 of the bill is the manner of the code section we use for paying boards and commissions. And what we say is that they will receive, now, and bear with me on this, and it takes a little bit of explanation, they will receive the same daily expense allowance as provided to members of the General Assembly for each day of service, plus mileage for their expenses going to and from the meeting. However, because the General Assembly's daily expense allowance has gone up, I think it was 173 now per day, which, as you know, you get even if you spend 2 minutes on General Assembly business and on a day in which it's done, or you spend 12 hours that day, you get the same daily expense allowance. Same is true of these boards. Whether they spend 1 minute or 12 hours, they get the same daily expense allowance. But we've gone in the B section of 45-7-21 and said when we use the term in the law with regard to these boards and commissions and authorities, the same daily expense allowances received by the members of the General Assembly, we mean $105 a day. Confusing, I admit it. But so what you've got is these boards will receive $105 a day if they meet, then plus their mileage. And that's what we're going for. What Representative Powell's bill here in the original would do is provide that if you do not appear in person, you do not get that daily expense allowance, period.
So, if I understand correctly, this bill actually saves money because it encourages that you're trying to encourage them to participate in video conferencing if they don't come to the meeting, and if they do, even though it may or may not be as effective, it costs $35 plus no expenses, whereas the other would be $105 plus expenses.
But another way to look at it is if I'm allowed to stay in that office and save myself travel time, I'm going to more than compensate financially as well as personal convenience for not taking it. I only, my travel time is much less than somebody traveling 250 miles both ways each way.
I think y'all are all looking at facets of the same coin, And depending on how you look at it, you can either be a cost savings or a personal savings or a cost increase. I mean, it can go many different ways depending on the individual person's personal circumstances. Let me say it that way.
In my feeling, opposition to as it's written, which again, I may be the only one that feels this way, is serving on a board, appointing to be served on a board, is public service for which you're not compensated. And the bureaucracy around paying somebody $35 for attending or not attending your bunny slippers is not worth
There was some concern from a member or two, and actually some non-members about this. This $35 was somewhat of a just a negotiated amount. That's what they pay jurors in, let's say, some counties. So we just agreed to that. So it's up to the committee. I mean, I'm open. I'm fine with the original bill. I'm fine with this one. I just need to know where you stand.
Yeah, and I might, as a footnote of what I may add to this, is that, I'm certainly open to any proposition, whatever the majority of the committee wants. I mean, I understand what mileage is. I understand what the per diem is for these. And to me, it struck me when this was told me back in December that this certain board of a state agency had did this, and I thought to myself, I said, per diem means to cover your expenses. What expenses do you have from sitting at your house in your jammies or in your office? And I don't mean to say that disrespectful, but what expenses do you have? To serve on a state committee is supposed to be an honor to basically give your services. Now, we all know in reality that you got a lot of folks who are appointed. They seek out and solicit appointment to the various boards because it's something that's of their interest, whether it be a DNR board or a DOC board or DOT board or the tens and tens and other boards that's administered out of Macon. They're generally the professionals that they deal with. So I mean, that was what my concern. I don't mind someone being paid to cover their expenses. But I serve on a board or two that outside my legislative role, that I do teleconferencing to these things. And I understand very well, I don't get the bang for the buck. Once a year, I might see who the members are that I serve with so that we can bond and to talk about the other things. Because in these meetings, the administrator is running the meeting, and it's up and down. And I feel like, quite frankly, I lose a little bit in that kind of a process. Do I need to be paid a salary or, quote, per diem? I don't, and don't take it. Now, I don't want to get into anything other than what this was. I think that in this changing and evolving society that we have, that this is going to come up again, that some of these agencies are going to do this, and we need to set it in iron what is legal and what's not legal. And I leave it at that, and whatever the will of this committee. I have spoke too long. I'm almost like my friend Les.
So, what is the will of this committee? Is anyone?
I'd like to make a motion.
Representative Williamson.
I'd like to make a motion that move do pass the original House Bill 739. I don't have the LC number of that one, but prior to this.
LC 286840.
So moved.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. All right, congratulations, Chairman Powell. And at this point, we will adjourn the meeting.